So welcome back to Third Age Reforged, and if all goes well, this should be the battle that will release on Christmas Day, so I hope that wherever you are, you're having a good festive period. And I know that I said this was going to be Helm's Deep, but I decided in the end, because I did actually receive this one just yesterday in fact, that we do Rivendell instead, purely because there's more players involved. The Helm's Deep one instead I think will push back for the new year instead. Obviously, you know, some holidays that are going on at the moment, so you know I can spread them out a little bit. And this is also going to be on 0.96, so this is not going to be on the test build 0.97, and obviously that's not too surprising considering most of the replays I will still get given will be from the publicly available build rather than just the tester build. Obviously there are only a few testers, whereas this build is available to everyone at the moment, so there's going to be a lot of players involved. That actually this is a player that I don't think I've seen before, but obviously Rivendell we've seen before. WK's updated Rivendell, which is much superior to the old version of Rivendell, which there wasn't really much room for tactical manoeuvring on that because it was very difficult to actually navigate through this area, which was really the only area in the old Rivendell. But we'll go through the attacking armies first of all, seeing as it was the player who sent me the replay is on the attacking armies, and it is Legatus who is going to be playing as Rohan. So obviously we've got the old Rohan models. Take a good look at them actually, because most of these you will not be seeing in future versions of the game, with the updated area units and the updated infantry units and all of that good stuff. So starting off over here we have the Sons of Yule, of course, obviously knights, which in a siege battle could be seen as a little bit risky, but Rivendell's city area is actually a little bit more open than most, so if their sort of defensive lines fall apart, it could be a bad time for them if the Sons of Yule start running around. Obviously I will be going through these army compositions a little bit more quickly, because obviously everyone knows what 0.96 is all about. 0.97 I took a little bit more time over it because there's a lot more to talk about, because there's new stuff. We've got some Eowyn shield mains over here. Axler is obviously good AP damage. The Aerid of Olberg obviously again Lancers, perhaps a little bit risky in this situation because obviously they are not as tough as the Sons of Yule, so they can be sort of more easily focused down. A couple of units of Westmark Marshals, however, obviously I'm a big fan of these guys just because they are very robust, very tough and very damaging shock infantry units, so we'll see how well they can do against any armoured defenders. We've got some Westmark infantry as well, which is better than a lot of people give it credit for, especially in the upcoming 0.97 patch. The Westmark infantry will be a very genuine presence for Rohan on the field. It looks like actually these guys, a lot of them are missing their swords, which is a little bit strange. We've got some Westmark spearmen as well, obviously just the equivalent spear unit. Spears in 0.96 of course not as good as they will be in 0.97, but here they can still be used as good pushing tools. A lot of Riddermark Axemen as well, unsurprising. This is really Rohan's primary infantry strength, the fact they've got quite a bit of AP that they can bring to the field, quite a lot of a charge bonus as well. A catapult, which is always going to be useful in a siege if you can get into the right position. And then we've got some more Aerid Valkberg, some more Riddermark Axes, and we've also got some Riddermark Archers over here as well as a skirmish force. The first of his allies, and this is not going to be a just purely good versus evil thing, because we're going to have a bit of a mix and match of all factions. We've got Ricky Beagle playing as Mordor. He's got some Morannon Archers, which he's left out a little bit on his flank. Got some Sauron's Will as well, obviously again nice maces that they carry, bit of AP. I think they encourage nearby troops as well, which is good for Mordor. They need that sort of thing. The Black Legion, pushing units like this, obviously a big factor in a lot of the Orc factions, and a lot of them go about it in different ways. The Mordor Orcs, of course, have got Trolls, but mainly the Black Legion are going to be used for that, because Trolls, of course, can fizzle out a little bit quickly, whereas there are a lot of the Black Legion that the enemy will have to cut their way through. More Sauron's Will. Also, the Mordor Trolls in general tend to be a little bit more focused around being sort of juggernauts in melee, and the Olag High are pretty much the ultimate expression of that. Very, very tough. This is true of 0.96 and of 0.97. Speaking of which, we have the Temple Guard, obviously fantastic AP Archer, which Mordor will share with Numenor in the upcoming 0.97, as well as some Nazgul. The Nazgul, of course, really, if you can put them in a blob of Mordor infantry, they are extremely effective, but there is also the danger that they could be focused down, so you do need to be careful of that. But they are much tougher than the Witchers, so the Witchers, whereas they can be sort of focused down from afar, the Nazgul have got enough HP, they can weather that storm. Upgraded Temple Executioners in and amongst the Orc fodder over here, so it looks like Mordor have gone for more quality. A lot of fodder here just to sort of try and fill out their ranks, and at the back over there we can see some Orc Javelins, which are low tier Javelins, but they can still do damage, as well as some Olag High over there, some Orc Maulers, and then some Morannon Heavy Maulers, so again a bit of AP. And then his most immediate ally, offsetting the Orcs' sort of quantity over quality approach, although Mordor have gone for a little bit more of their high tier stuff. We have Mirkwood, played by Minhash. He's got some Dagnirim Ik Erin, which Horse Archers in a siege, I'm not so sure, especially a more fragile Horse Archer like Mirkwood's. They're a little bit more focused around their damage. we'll see. I mean, again, it's going to really depend on whether or not they can sort of crack open the defensive lines and start running around throughout the town. If they can, then a unit like this could be useful. Some Thandrim E. Erin, which obviously some spears, elven spears though, with higher skill. The Maithir Lasgallen, or Inner Council as they will be known, spear javelin hybrids. And some Hiri Pang, which obviously elven heavy archers do tend to be pretty damn good in melee as well. Some Hiri Yak pushing a siege tower, which is completely unnecessary on Rivendell, because of course there are no walls that you need to scale, no gates that you need to knock down. It really is just defensive position and choke points that the elves of Imladris tend to hold. Some Thandrim Erin backed up by some Hiri Lungs, obviously more spears, and then some skillful elven swordsmen, as well as some Hiri Out, which obviously they have a shield, so a little bit less attack focus, but they are tougher to deal with at range. Some more Hiri Out, some more Hiri Pang, and then at the back we have some Yaragwe Inanwaith, which obviously, good at range and in melee as well, but they do need to be supported because there are only so many of them. And then up here on the hill we can see some Thurny Tower, some Gwath Erin Gallan, and some Hiri Yak. So again, sort of pushing some siege equipment, but needlessly really. And then the final attacking army before we get into the defending armies, we have Ending Flame 0210, which is good to see some players I haven't seen in replays before, I have to say. Playing as Umbar, which Umbar, of course, particularly in this, in both 0.96 and 0.97, very tough. You know, they've got a good mix of lower tier units which are disposable, higher tier units with locked morale. The Belagai Halberds here, obviously a good polearm unit with that AP. Looks like they've got the armour upgrade as well. Some Numenorian Lancers again. A lot of cavalry here from the attackers, which surprises me considering it's a siege. We've got a catapult over here. We have some crossbow Corsairs, so some good AP. Belagai Archers, good skirmish archer. Corsair Savages for the AP, some Belagai Footmen for just some disposable units. And then a ton of Castamir's Legion, which obviously the heart and soul of most Umbar armies. Lots of quality there. Some Nadu Tariq as well, which I believe have got the armour upgrade. Indeed they do. So more AP as well as shields and sort of heavy armour. And also some Narun Aru Royal Guards, so multiple HP spearmen as well as archers at range. Very, very tough. Now we'll move on to the defenders. And the defenders, we have a mix of Lothlorien, played by Rain 5823, which again is another player I'm not familiar with. So we've got some Galathrim Nobles and a Catapult. Obviously the Galathrim Nobles fantastically powerful. Sindar Archers as well, so definitely a quality focused approach. We also have Pos Name Any, or Pos Name Nanny. I'll just call it Pos for the remainder of this battle. We have the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, which of course in 0.96, this is when they're still very, very powerful, the strongest faction in the game at this point. So we have some Sylvan Rangers mixed in with a bunch of 3rd Legion, 2nd Legion, 1st Legion, and no 4th Legion in here, interestingly enough, which is one of the stronger units Khazad-dûm have. We've got some Sons of the Fallen, obviously very, very strong spearmen. Another unit of Sons of the Fallen, actually, as well as some Lothlorien Archers and some Sindar Blade Masters. We have Arthedain as well, played by Lord of the Mountains. He's got some of his Numenus Gate Guards sort of in and amongst the Imladris buildings over here, some Sylvan Spears. Legion Bodyguard, all of the best Khazad-dûm infantry back here in the town centre. Lothlorien Swordmasters, obviously the quality on display here from the defenders is going to be very, very significant. The Dwarves, Lothlorien, and also Arthedain are capable of bringing some very nice units as well. The Numenus Gate Guards here in greater numbers. We have over here actually some Fornos Terrain Defenders, which you don't actually see a lot of in 0.96. You will see more of them in 0.97 purely because the Dunedain Peacekeepers are no longer spearmen, so this is really one of Arthedain's only pure spear options that they will have. But in this sort of version of the game, the Dunedain Peacekeepers are just outright better. We have the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers with some Hammers of Gundabad and some more 3rd Legion by the looks of things. And then over here, some Arthedain Men-at-Arms up here on the hill. Usually we have more up here, but it looks as though we've got a sort of expeditionary force over there. Some dismounted Fornost Arraign Knights. Looking up here on the hill, we've got some more Arthedain Cavalry, some Knights of Annuminus, which they need to be careful. If they get bottled up, they're going to be a real waste. Some Arthedain Marksmen up here as well. And then sort of the force they've got a little bit further forward, some Dunedain Scouts, so more cavalry from the defenders as well. Interesting. Some Lothlorien Blades, which of course don't exist in 0.97, so take a good look at them while they still exist. Some Karas Galadhon's Guardians, so some elite Lothlorien units out here backed up by some Bandabrass Archers, and also some Hobbit Slingers, as well as a unit of Numenus Gate Guards. So, that's going to just about wrap it up for the army compositions. I will make a cut because, generally speaking, on Rivendell, with how the deployments work, the attackers have to sort of spend a bit of time manoeuvring before they get all their armies into a position where they can start to attack. So, I will rejoin when the battle is beginning. This is probably not what they want to be doing with their Dunedain Scouts, to be fair, because they are moving into a position that Mirkwood occupy. Generally speaking, the Dunedain Scouts want to avoid a skirmish-heavy defensive point as best they can. And going into a Mirkwood area, needless to say, Mirkwood have got fantastic ranged skirmishers. It looks like this is actually going to be a straight fight between two horse skirmishers. Actually, the Dunedain Scouts on one side and the Dagnirrim Ik Erin on the other side. And in this situation, I don't know actually, you know, the Dunedain Scouts, they're decent, and they did get the first volley off, which can be all important, especially with the Dagnirrim starting to move around a little bit. So the Dunedain Scouts might be able to cancel out the Mirkwood skirmishers here a little bit. The first volley obviously very important in a fight between two fragile skirmishers, but the problem they have is that Mirkwood have got their foot skirmishers nearby, and with the addition of the Thurney Tower, this is going to be real painful for the Dunedain Scouts, and they are now starting to fall away very, very quickly indeed. Meanwhile, just across the way, we can see that there was a Lothlorien catapult over here. And I believe this actually has something to do with the rules of the game. I believe there was only so much artillery allowed, and the fact that the Lothlorien catapult has moved out on its own leads me to believe that perhaps this was intentional. But even if it wasn't, the Air of Aldberg are going to come forward and destroy the Lothlorien catapult, although they're backing off now, so clearly it was a mistake. And the players are sporting enough to allow the Lothlorien catapult to return. Meanwhile, the Dunedain Scouts are now going to leave with their tails between their legs. Only 6 of them. They're not broken though, so they may still be a factor in the battle. But you can see, obviously, going into a Mirkwood heavy skirmish position was always going to be pretty dicey for them. The Dagnirrim probably would have won that 1-to-1 anyway, just about the Elven skill and damage seeing them through. But the addition of the Thurney Tower as well obviously tilted the fight really heavily in favour of Mirkwood skirmishers there. But there's still a little bit of manoeuvring going on, and I don't think there's going to be any sort of counter-attacks going on past this, so I think I will make another small cut here, while the Umbar and Rohan armies just get into position and get ready for the push. Artillery starting to rain down on the outer defensive positions over here. Khazad-dûm taking it upon themselves to cover both choke points initially, which is unsurprising. You would certainly back them to defend. There is a bit of AP in both Mordor and especially Rohan's ranks actually. But overall the quality of Khazad-dûm's infantry is such that they should feel fairly confident. The first infantry engagement starting between some Orc fodder and some 1st Legion pikes and some 4th Legion shield guard here on the front line. However, interestingly enough, you can see here the Nazgûl are in here. Now, I'm not so sure whether this is going to work or not. I feel as though if Mordor bring across some of their heavy maulers perhaps to add some additional AP and also more of a meat shield for the Nazgûl, this could actually work out pretty nicely for them. But the Nazgûl, they're going to need more protection than the Orc fodder to start working their magic, I think. Because the 1st Legion pikes are so good, they will be able to hold back the Nazgûl if they don't have any significant support. Some ranged support would be nice as well, but again, Khazad-dûm so good at holding the line. There's also a bit more of a... again, there's 2 Dunedain Scouts trying to sort of harass the advance of Minhash's Mirkwood army, but again the amount of damage they're going to do is extremely limited at this point, but again every little helps. You can also see, however, that this defensive position over here, not often actually that the defenders will come out to defend this area. Usually they will sort of fall back and try to defend the cliffs, but this is a narrow choke point, and the Karas Galadhon's Guardians are at the front with some Lothlorien spears in support, also some Arthedain skirmishers, and I would assume some Arthedain infantry are also going to come over. In fact, it looks like the majority of the Lothlorien army coming over here to try and block the advance of both Mirkwood and Umbar, which is easier said than done. Meanwhile, the Nazgûl are on the front line. You can see the balance of forces is evenly matched, and the Nazgûl will slowly but surely shred their way through the shield guard. The issue, I would say, is the fact that the 1st Legion pikes are here, and the Nazgûl probably, well, eventually they will certainly run out of steam against this amount of Khazad-dûm infantry, and if the Reclaimers start really focusing down the Nazgûl, this attack could be a bit ill prepared for. But there is Orc Maulers coming forward, which is good to see. So the Nazgûl are going to have a little bit more support, and it's going to be AP damage as well. Obviously not the highest quality on Orc Maulers, but the AP damage will help against the dwarves, and also they will be fulfilling their primary purpose of just acting as a meat shield for the Nazgûl. You can see here there's so much dwarven infantry ready to try and hold the line. So it's either going to be a slow grind, which I think Mordor are actually wanting over on this side if they're going to commit the Nazgûl like this, because they haven't got any sort of javelins, axe throwers or archers here in support to try and help pepper down the dwarven front line. Speaking of which, as we go through this valley, You can see that the Orc fodder just sort of waiting. Temple Execution is moving forward, so Ricky Beagle potentially committing a lot of his elite units quite early here. But again, they don't really have too much of a choice because the Dwarves have committed a lot of their resources to these front lines. It would appear that Arthedain then are going to be the reserve forces for both of these. Now this would be a bold move indeed. The Olag High are moving forward, which would be enough to unbalance this line, but I don't think it would be enough to break through the Dwarves entirely. You can see the 1st Legion Pikes are still braced. Shield Guards still in formation, the Nazgul are all still alive, and that is a fact which is unlikely to change for the foreseeable future. The Olag High could move in here. The Khazad Reclaimers trying to get in position. They have not used their ammunition yet, so it would be ill-advised for them to go into melee just yet. You can see they are getting into position, I think, to try and throw their axes at the Olag High, which obviously, at the moment, Khazad Reclaimers are still AP. I don't think that's the case in 0.97. They instead have higher damage. The Olag High are going to come forward to try, and I think get through to the Khazad Reclaimers, but even if they can't do that, they will still do a nice amount of damage to the 1st Legion Pikes over here. But this is a big committal of resources on Mordor's part. Rohan's infantry in the late game will not be enough to break Arthedain and Khazad-dûm. Mordor are going to need to leave some of their units in reserve to help out with that. But even so, the Olag High here on the front line, the toughest trolls on the block, in conjunction with the Nazgul and a bunch of Orc Maulers. That's got to be body piercing. Yeah, well actually no, Evendim archers. I thought that was body piercing from the way the frames decided to abandon me for a second there. Meanwhile, we do have an engagement over on this side as well. And once again, it's Orc fodder going in first, but they are going to be backed up by a very elite unit, the Temple Executioners, which 1-to-1 should do pretty well. But again, it's 1st Legion Pikes here, which is going to keep a lot of the Mordor units at arm's length. On the other side, the Trolls and the sheer weight of numbers is going to be unbalancing the Dwarven phalanx, but over on this side, less so. They're going to need a lot more support, I think, to get through this. There are some Riddermark Axemen in the back, as well as some Helmingas from Legatus, trying to lend some support, but it's not easy to shoot into this area over here. Definitely this area is going... well, this choke point over here is the more significant one, but you can see the Olag High are now starting to fall apart. Khazad trying to sort of overwhelm with sheer numbers at this point. How many of the 1st Legion do they actually manage to kill? Not enough, really. The Olag High is starting to fall away now. The 2nd Legion Axe Guard coming in with their high damage AP. More forces approaching, however. Mordor are going to need to keep committing resources to this fight over here now, purely because they've already committed 2 of their strongest units. They're going to need to try and make it pay somehow. Now the Khazad units just sort of pulling back now that the Olag High, the danger of having their lines pushed through, gone a little bit. So they're just going to pull these units out, wait for the next wave to come forward. Over on this side, meanwhile, I can hear artillery, and it is from Lothlorien, shooting their catapult into point blank into this area over here, but not really the best shot for them either. You can see that Rohan are now coming forward, lending a bit of support. But again, the problem they have is the fact that these pikes are just able to keep their shape, keep their phalanx in position. There's not much that Riddermark Axemen are going to be able to do to change that. In close quarters, if the phalanx was broken, the AP would be a little bit more useful. The 1st Legion also have that small shield value and very good armour values, making them a little bit more resilient to archers, so it might be time, honestly, for something like the Eowyn Shield Maidens to try and come forward and do some damage, because over here there's very limited skirmish presence. It's only the Evendim archers, really. They could bring the Khazad Reclaimers forward as well. But there's nothing like the body-piercing rangers, which are probably over here. Obviously this is a large battle, so we can expect the frames to fall apart, especially when the body-piercing rangers start getting involved. So obviously the Lothlorien front line, skirmishing down with Umbar as they advance forward, taking the initial brunt of things. But the crossbow corsairs I would have saved till later. Crossbow corsairs obviously can be extremely damaging, but they are very fragile as well. They do get a very nice full frontal volley there into the Lothlorien spears. As now Mirkwood and Umbar begin their joint advance. Combination of Belagai footmen, Thandrimi arrow, and I think there's some Belagai halberds in here as well. No, just footmen, so it's all spears actually. Spear versus spear here on the front line. Ooh, that frame rate. You can actually see the Karas Galadhon's Guardians taking some very substantial losses. So actually the skirmish fight going okay over here for Mirkwood and Umbar, as you might expect actually.
Our foe has lost control of the castle.
Thank you, announcer. Spear versus spear to spear, however, the Lothlorien spears are very strong. They should be able to hold, especially when they're receiving support from Lothlorien swordcasters. That's a lot of damage Lothlorien have taken over here, though. And this is one of the reasons why this area is often not defended, because it's much easier for the defenders to go back a little bit further and use these cliffs to their full advantage. Whereas over here, Lothlorien have already taken some big losses on some very elite units. Well, over here on this side, some Rohan units have come forward in support. The Riddermark Axemen. Are the Nazgûl still alive? I can see them. But are they all still alive? They've actually lost one unit model, so that's a bad sign. Hit points being chewed through. But a lot more AP on this front line now. The Rohirrim come forward with their big two-handed battle axes. And obviously that AP going to be paying dividends against the dwarves. But again, in terms of sheer quality, Rohan do lack, especially next to equivalent dwarven units like the 2nd Legion. So more reinforcements are going to be necessary. Definitely a wave-to-wave assault which is going on right now. Quality of the defending armies is pretty apparent at this point. Temple Executioners have not actually taken much in the way of losses, however, which is good for the attackers. And you can see they are starting to actually wrap around a little bit. Some of the Riddermark Axemen and Temple Executioners starting to attack the side of this phalanx, which means slowly but surely they're going to be able to get some damage done. You can also see some Morannon archers getting into position, the Helmingas, which are a little bit clustered together actually. Not often you see the catapult just on regular fire, but they are doing so, trying to get some damage on those Mordor and Rohan skirmishers. As the fight slowly but surely drags on here. But with that, if more infantry is committed to the front line from the attackers here, I would imagine that they will slowly be able to gain the upper hand here, because the 1st Legion are definitely the anchor to the Dwarven line here. As soon as they are lost, the defensive line becomes a little bit less scary. 1st Legion obviously a very, very strong pike unit indeed. Meanwhile, over on this side, the Nazgûl are still here. Only one unit model has been lost, and now you can see that there's going to be some more reinforcements coming forward. The Eowyn Shield Maidens, which is very good to see from an attacking perspective. They should be able to get some nice damage done to the dwarves if they get into position. There's also more infantry coming forward, more armour-piercing infantry as well, in the shape of the Morannon heavy maulers. Those big axes. Again, the issue here is one of quality, really, one of skill. Because while the AP is very nice, all of the Khazad-dûm infantry units have more skill than all of these Rohan and Mordor axemen, which means over the course of a long battle, Mordor and Rohan will take more losses, but then again they do also have more in reserve, so they can afford to take more losses. Emendim archers in position there. There is still some reinforcements here to give for Khazad-dûm, but not as many as there was. There's still some Sons of the Fallen there, which is going to be a pretty scary proposition to take on. Well, once again, we can see over here a massive blob fight erupting in this very small choke point. The Caras-Galadhon's Guardians, while they may have taken some substantial losses from the skirmishers, which are causing horrendous frame drops if I get close to that fight, the Caras-Galadhon's Guardians are now into melee, which is going to make them harder to hit, and of course that is where they are most at home. More Lothlorien forces being committed forward, so this is a real blob fight here, and Lothlorien's quality could see them through here, especially against stuff like Corsair Savages, which are not going to be too useful against Lothlorien. Lothlorien's skill easily going to allow them to cut through those Umbar Axemen. Some Sindar archers back here, so yeah, pretty much the entire Lothlorien army is over here. There's still some Arthedain knights up here on the hill, which could charge down if there is an opening in Mirkwood and Umbar, but that is unlikely. This is one long choke point. If there is an opening at that point, Mirkwood and Umbar are probably on their last legs, which is not likely to happen for some time yet. The battle is, after all, 51,000 frames long. A long battle for Christmas. The other unit of Olag Kai is now moving forward, but once again, the Khazad-dûm reclaims are still here, which is probably the main source of how those Olag Kai fell so quickly last time. But again, some heavy maulers and some Olag Kai coming forwards now. I'm not sure how the 1st Legion are doing, because again, that is the... there's 48 of them left. Once again, the Khazad-dûm reclaimers starting to throw their missiles when the Olag Kai move forward, and the Sons of the Fallen being committed forward. That is pretty much all of Khazad-dûm's resources now that have been spent on this choke point. The Olag Kai are probably going to die off before the attackers manage to crack through this area, but there's still going to be more damage done, and there's more Riddermark Axemen on the way. As always, the attackers are going to have more resources, but the quality here on display, oh god, is that the archers doing their thing. Sons of the Fallen taking some skirmish damage, but again, with their armour and shields, they're going to be just fine. Interestingly enough, actually, the Lothlorien catapult switching its fire onto the Umbar and Mirkwood forces across the river. That's a pretty good idea as well, because there's not really much they're going to be able to do to dodge this. You can see just the one long blue line on the minimap. Dagny over there. Hetherley Tower have also revealed themselves, so another offensively focused unit. Again, I'm surprised that they haven't got fire ammunition on, because that would cause a lot more splash damage. Going after the Hiri Lung. Perhaps. A lot of arrows flying backwards and forwards. If we get on high here, just to sort of see the battle from an elevated position. Obviously the frame rate not doing so well with all of those units in close proximity. I've got Reshade on as well, which, you know, taking my life into my own hands in a big battle like this. But Lothlorien, with their quality, able to hold the line. Looking like they're going to win so far, and quality obviously is what the defenders are going to be banking on. Corsair Savages coming forward more as fodder than anything else, really. Because they're going to do terribly in this environment where arrows are flying backwards and forwards, and also Lothlorien's skill going to be far too much for a unit of low skill axeman like the Corsair Savages. Well, as I sort of miss once again from on high, we can see that over here the frame rate not quite so terrible. Again, Riddermark Axemen coming forward. Looks like we've got some Helmungers that are out of ammunition as well as a reserve battalion and more fodder being pushed forward. Again, at this point I would say that it's just important to keep this line occupied. Eventually they are going to break through here as well, but the resources they've committed to the other side a little bit more substantial. The unit of 3rd Legion going to be here to shore up the line as well. A bit of a skirmish fight going on here between Mordor and Arthedain over this fight. Evendim archers obviously nothing too special, but this is 0.96 where low cost archers are the way forwards. Some Evendim archers over here as well. Meanwhile, see over here there is but a single troll left alive, which unsurprising with the Khazad-dûm reclaimers nearby. The Sons of the Fallen are now also in melee as well, so again another very strong Khazad-dûm infantry unit holding down the entryway to Rivendell. I wonder what circumstances led to the dwarves defending Elrond's home for him. Then again, I also wonder how Mirkwood ended up on the same side as Sauron. Still, we have the Eowyn Shield Maidens just in reserve over here as well. Not really in a position where they can fire. I mean, they can fire over their own men, but the front line is thin enough to the point where the dwarves are probably going to be spared the majority of the axe thrower damage. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers also here. A reserve unit of 2nd Legion being brought forward to try and hold the line. And again, the Nazgul's presence on this front line, as soon as they're gone, and there are 7 of them left at this point, so slowly but surely being whittled down. When the Nazgul are gone, they're going to need to rely... Oh, hello, the Eowyn Shield Maidens firing a volley into the front of the 2nd Legion. Several of them falling away. Again, armour-piercing axes savagely biting into this unit with every volley. Another nice volley over there, so again, just trying to make this line a little bit more difficult to reinforce. Nice chunk taken out of that unit of 2nd Legion there. There are still some reserve units, including the Legion Bodyguard, which that would be a significant addition to this front line. Meanwhile, over here on this front line, still the 1st Legion on this side, still in much better health. They haven't had to deal with trolls or axe throwers. They've just had to try and deal with a very atrocious fight, which is exactly what they want. But this is the significant thing, as I said before, the fact that the Temple Executioners, who are now starting to take damage, and the Riddermark Axemen and Helmingers are slowly biting into the side of this line. It's also the fact that they're taking some inaccurate arrow fire from the Evendim archers in the back now. Meanwhile, let's see what we can see as I overshoot it horribly. This fight over here, the horrendous frame rate killer that we have going on. Actually, it's not so bad anymore. You can see that it's primarily Corsair Savages on the front line, which of course Lothlorien are absolutely going to love this fight. Fighting Spartan style in a narrow choke point against these very low quality, or low skill axes I should say. The Corsair Savages certainly have their place, but not against Lothlorien, I have to say. That AP would have been far better served going up against either Khazad-dûm or Arthedain. Lothlorien will love fighting up against low skill axemen with a focus on AP. Lothlorien do have armour, but it's certainly not their primary focus. Hiri Pang back here as well. Some Gwathi Erin Gallen, the assassin unit with their throwing daggers. There's still plenty of reserves here, of course. This is what the attackers certainly have in their favour. They can afford to take all of these losses because, of course, eventually you would imagine that the defenders will have to try and pull back a little bit. Rid of Mark Axeman here. Again, the Aowen Shieldmane's getting into a position where they can try and do some damage to this front line. Oof. Is that body piercing arrow fire? I'm always sort of suspecting that that's the case whenever I see a frame drop and a bunch of arrows fly past. Body piercing really does tank the frame rate, especially with Reshade. You actually see the dwarves are actually the ones to start wrapping around the attackers' lines here, because I think the Nazgul are here, but they pushed into the lines. Only 3 of them left, so this is going to be the end of the Nazgul. It's going to be the end of the Olag High. A lot of Mordor's strength already spent here. But the opposite is also true. Khazad-dûm have had to commit a lot to these front lines to keep them functional. But I think the time has come for Rohan to start pushing forward some of their better stuff. Maybe it's time for the Westmark Marshals to come forward. A little bit more quality. The Aowen Shieldmanes are already here after all. Because at this point they need to make this stick. The dwarves only have so much they can commit to these front lines. They do have the Hammers of Gundabad getting ready and in position. But at this point, with how much Mordor have already committed, the die is cast. The attackers need to keep attacking this this avenue. Well, Lothlorien Catapult still looming. Over here, you can see some Orc Javelins getting into position, trying to get some shots off. Obviously, they don't have quite such an easy time throwing over the heads of their units as the Axe Throwers do. But again, reinforcements being brought forward. The Sons of the Fallen shoring up the line. A bit of Mark Axeman are shaken actually, so the Rohirrim are losing their stomach for the fight. The Temple Executioners are not, of course. They will stand and fight to the bitter end. Orc Javelins not really in a position where they can shoot, unfortunately for them. They might be out of ammunition. I might have just missed all their ammunition being thrown, but I kind of doubt it because there's not enough bodies. Even a low quality javelin like this would kill off more than what is shown here. The Rohirrim trying their best to back up the Temple Executioners, as are the Orc Fodder, but again the dwarves just holding firm. Khazad-dûm at their strongest in .96, of course. Meanwhile, this advanced defensive position from Lothlorien so far still holding. You can see some Hetherley Tower being committed forward, so a bit more skill from the elves on display, but again, Mirkwood have had to compromise in areas of their army where Lothlorien have just basically brought all of their best stuff. The Karos Galadhon's Guardians may have taken some pretty savage initial volleys from the crossbow Corsairs, but they are now right at the heart of this defence, backed up by a ton of strong Lothlorien infantry and even skirmishers that are out of ammunition. Sindar Blade Masters waiting, the Bandabrass Archers are there in support as well. More Umbar forces coming forward, but again it's just Corsair Savages. The amount of damage they're going to do is pretty limited. If they got their charge off, it might be a bit different, but they're not going to be able to. They're going to have to go through their own men. So again, a real grind fight here, which so far, going in favour of Lothlorien. What's going on back here? You can see a little bit of a readjustment here from Arthedain. So Arthedain here have pretty much got all of their army still intact. There's some Lothlorien units back here as well. But it would appear at least that what the defenders are going to do, Lothlorien and Khazad-dûm will take the responsibility for 1 choke point each, and then hope that they can do enough damage for Arthedain to then see them over the line in the late game, which is not a bad idea because the quality on the front line here from the elves and the dwarves has made it extremely difficult for the attackers to gain any ground at all. We've got some Westmark Spearmen on the front line now. Aowen Shieldmanes coming in doing some damage to the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, and they got the first volley off actually, so this might go against the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. Another volley here before the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers even able to throw a single axe. But yeah, Westmark Spearmen being committed forward, which is good. You know, more men for the front line, but again, the Westmark Spearmen are unlikely to do huge amounts of damage to the Dwarven infantry line, especially not when there's stuff like 2nd Legion in there. Very high damage Axeman. Evendim Archers also, just looming. What have we over here? Still the Temple Executioners fighting on, 34 of them, slowly but surely being worn down. The fact that these 1st Legion are still in fairly decent health as well is a bad sign for the attackers on this front. They're going to need a little bit more to get them through this. Again, perhaps the case can be made for some Westmark Spearmen to put themselves into shield wall and try and push through. Pushing through the dwarves is not easy, but as time is wearing on here, They are taking more and more losses. Some Sauron's Will moving forward, which will be a welcome addition to the front line. A little bit more damage focus. Perhaps a little bit fragile to range fire, but it's also not the easiest target in this particular gap. The Evendim archers will probably try and hit them. How much success they will have is debatable. Meanwhile, we can see some Gwathi Erengalen trying to get in a position perhaps to use their throwing daggers, but here I doubt that's going to be the case. Mirkwood skirmishers trying to do some damage here, which at this point they are managing to do so. Getting some nice hits into the...
They have lost half their men.
I would imagine that's probably Lothlorien. And the Mirkwood skirmishers now getting some decent damage done to this Lothlorien front line, which is now looking like it's flagging a little bit. That is a lot of Mirkwood skirmish fire heading into them. From the Hiri Peng, the Belagire archers also lending a hand. The Umbar catapult is also here. Still a lot of reserves as well. More reinforcements coming down the hill perhaps? It looked like they were going to pull back to the town centre actually, the Arthedain and Lothlorien forces that are up here. It looks as though the Hobbit Slingers have turned around. The Hobbit Slingers, I believe they function just like javelins and axe throwers, but they have substantially less damage, so it's basically just like the lowest quality javelin there is. But even that might be enough to honestly do some damage here. Obviously the Corsair Savages, infamous for their sort of lack of ability to stand up to skirmish fire. They do have the armour upgrade as we can see, but that won't help them too much. Now some Castamir's Legion moving forward, so now I think Mirkwood and Umbar starting to turn the screw on this Lothlorien front line here on the cliffside. Finally able to get over this stone bridge. Eventually you would imagine this is going to be the case. Some Lothlorien blades are here, but again, just the numbers combined with the quality here, Mirkwood and Umbar making a pretty formidable team. But Lothlorien have done some damage. I mean, Lothlorien, they parked their defence here and they have not moved since, they have not budged. But I do feel as though the attackers have probably had a little bit more of a cost-effective time of it over here, purely because their skirmishers have done quite a lot of damage to some of Lothlorien's better units, whereas Khazad-dûm over here have really held the line very well. Eventually I would imagine Khazad-dûm are going to fall as well, but the amount they take with them is going to be significant. Ricky Beagle's Mordor army, for example, already a lot of the quality units have fallen away. The Sauron's Will being committed to the front line now, trying to add a bit of AP with their big war clubs. Again, this First Legion still holding the line. Meanwhile, the area where the battle was first joined today, still being held, and in fact, you know, the dwarves are winning over here pretty substantially. The Hammers of Gundabad coming forward and turning the screw on the attackers, and as if that wasn't enough, even the Evendim archers want in on the action, acting perhaps as a little bit of a meat shield for their dwarven brethren in melee. Again, just more of a presence on the front line is certainly going to help the defenders here, and the Evendim archers, of course, are not going to be sorely needed elsewhere when they're out of ammunition like they are. So why not give the dwarves a little bit of a hand pushing back against the attackers here. There are some Helmingas over here, but again, the amount of damage that archers can do to the Khazad-dûm overall, obviously going to be very good at mitigating arrow fire for the most part. It's really only the ORCS of Khazad-dûm in their roster, and the miners, of course, which struggle a little bit with that. But elsewhere, even units which don't have a shield value, like the Hammers of Gundabad, have got a very high armour value, which certainly helps mitigate some of that damage. There's still some Nazgul. There was 2 units of Nazgul. Damn, 2 units of Nazgul. Well, with the second unit of Nazgul on the front line, that might turn things around a little bit, but with 2 units of Nazgul, 2 Olag Kai, you know, Mordor's army, you'd have to say that they must be running on fumes at this point. They don't have too much left in reserve, which is going to put a lot of the onus on Rohan. As you can see back here, the only thing they really have in reserve is green arrows from the Rohirrim, which they do have cavalry, which if Mordor can sort of open a hole in these defences over here with their, you know, if they sacrifice themselves to get Rohan into the settlement, that Rohirrim cavalry could be the sort of thing which does a lot of damage, causes a lot of havoc, and also sort of tilt the odds in the attacker's favour here as a unit of Sauron's Will comes forward with the Nazgul. The Evendim archers, of course, will not be enough to stem the tide against Nazgul and Sauron's Will. The 2nd Legion Axe Guards still laying down their AP damage in melee. As we tilt across a little bit here, have a look at this front line. We've actually got some Umbar units over here. Ending Flame sending over some Belagire halberds to lend a hand, and that AP will be appreciated greatly by these units over here. And actually, we are just a little bit past the halfway point. Having a look, it is dead even in terms of percentages killed, which is honestly probably not a great thing for the defenders. Obviously, in the late game, time and time again, we've seen the attackers start to pull away. But we also have to remember that the attackers have... One of the things that defenders often do wrong is they dump all of their skirmish potential into the attackers in the early game. That is not true this time. Arthur Dane have sort of kept a lot of their army in reserve. Meanwhile, over here, defeat still seems certain for Lothlorien, but the problem is here is that the Castamir's Legion are at the back. And that is allowing Lothlorien to get a lot more kills on stuff like these Corsair Savages. So they're still able to sort of fight their way to being somewhat efficient. The Hobbit Slingers getting into position, although the Hobbit Slingers also drawing a lot of skirmish fire. The attackers may very well run out of ammunition before this game is done. There is of course this Arthur Dane position up on the hill as well, which is going to be very difficult for the attackers, especially after all the damage they've already taken. A bit war weary. Mirkwood and Umbar, they're going to have to go through this defensive position full of Arthur Dane skirmishers. Numinous Gate Guards. There's also the Knights of Numinous up there, which, again, a unit of knights like that, very, very tough to kill. This could still prove to be all important as this fight wears on. Umbar reinforcements over here, very much appreciated, because now the Dwarven front line is starting to crumble under the weight. Temple Executioners, still 27 of them left, and seeing as they were one of the first units on the scene, they've done very well to keep themselves alive, especially against some really quality units like the Sons of the Fallen and the 1st Legion Pikes. Not a lot of the Rohirrim left over here though. More reinforcements will be necessary to sort of make this stick, but this is the time when Legatus should certainly be looking at this and thinking, actually no, never mind. Not with the Hammers of Gundabad on the way forward. I thought maybe that the Dwarven front line was looking like it could break. And that would have been the time for the Aerid of Valberg and the Sons of Yule to really shine, start charging and causing havoc in this more open area of the settlement. There are pikes to watch out for, but it would have been very difficult to contain the Rohirrim cavalry once they were running riot. Meanwhile, over here, Balance of Forces is evenly matched. The Nazgul, there's still actually one unit of the original Nazgul unit, which is over here, carving their way through Evendim archers who are shaken and looking like they're going to break. The other unit of Nazgul coming forwards, trying to do some damage. Helmingas over here, Khazad Reclaimers. Yeah, there's not a lot of defences over here, so this actually might be the area where the Rohirrim cavalry should start charging into the settlement and causing some havoc, because there's not a lot of reserves on station. And with the Nazgul there, they are certainly going to be victorious in the long run without the support of some of this like really elite Dwarven infantry. That might be enough to turn the tide. Legion Bodyguard looks like they're going to go down there and try and help out, but it's going to take more than one unit. For Pos, this is really the flashpoint of the battle. If he sends forward 2 of his elite units, he could turn this around. If he's too conservative and only commits 1, I don't know. I don't fancy their chances if that happens. Meanwhile, the Hammers of Gundabad over here doing their best to try and turn this fight around once more, which they might be able to. In close proximity, laying down their AP damage against the Belagai Halberds and the Temple Executioners, actually. As the Numinous Gate Guards are coming over here, so Arthur Dane, sort of more and more, we're seeing a little bit more of Arthur Dane's army. In drips and drabs, they are committing forward resources. Aha! Good to see. Numinous Gate Guards are going to be committed as well. Note the Legion Bodyguard are turning around. Don't know if the Numinous Gate Guards and the Guards of Khazad would be enough. Unless they're setting up a secondary line back here. It looks as though that, yeah, the Khazad Reclaimers already pulling back. Yeah, this is a lost cause at this point. It's time to set up a secondary front line. Pull back. Finally, the attackers able to break down this Dwarven defence, but there is going to be another one. This time backed up by Arthur Dane pikes, ready and waiting for them. Meanwhile, these Khazad Reclaimers have been caught by some Helmingas as the Rohirrim skirmishers pour forwards, trying to catch the dwarves off balance, but that is not going to happen. The Legion Bodyguard actually not going to get their charge off into the Helmingas, but the opposite is also true. But needless to say, the Helmingas are going to get absolutely dumpstered in melee by the Legion Bodyguard. The Numinous Gate Guards moving forward. They will need backup, naturally, against Nazgul. Khazad Reclaimers throwing what ammunition they have left into the Sauron's Will. Yeah, this initial force here is going to get crushed without the support of the Nazgul. The Riddermark archers coming forward, trying to get some shots off. The Numinous Gate Guards would definitely be the right target there. can see the guards of Khazad-dûm going to block any reinforcements. These Riddermark archers still had ammunition. They're trying to get into a more advantageous position, but all they're going to do is get themselves into a melee fight with guards of Khazad-dûm, which, needless to say, is going to go hideously for the Riddermark archers. 3 HP on the guards of Khazad-dûm, and they are fresh, eager for the fight. The second unit of Khazad-dûm reclaimers are over here, so they are eager to contain this this breakthrough that looked like the attackers were going to have. Black Legion of Barad-dûr moving forward now as well. That Rohirrim cavalry still waiting. Honestly, this might be the time, because there are gaps here for the Rohirrim cavalry to exploit, and a charge might be enough to turn this fight around. It's risky, but I really don't see how else the cavalry is going to be useful. They're going to need to try and risk it, I think. The Black Legion of Barad-dûr is coming forward, but there's really nothing to push through here. The gaps have already appeared, and if they just get into a sustained fight with the guards of Khazad-dûm, that's going to be a real waste of the Black Legion. Guards of Khazad-dûm just really tanking it out. Meanwhile, some Annuminous Gate Guards coming forward to support this front line as well. So while it looked like initially they were going to try and hold back, oh yeah, these Annuminous Gate Guards should not try and reinforce this line. It's already lost. Pretty much all of the Lothlorien units already gone. At this point, it's a thin line of Banderbrass archers which are holding back Umbar and Mirkwood from really advancing forward in force. So this Annuminous Gate Guard unit is really going to be better off pulling back and trying to hold elsewhere. Some Dunedain Peacekeepers over here, which I missed actually. Good to see that. What is that frame drop all about? Let's get back over to this side of the map, I guess. On this fight over here, the addition of the Annuminous Gate Guards, doubling up with the First Legion pikes, going to be enough to actually win them the fight over here, although the Eowyn shield mains are now in position, and with none of their own units in the way, they are going to have a straight shot into this defensive line. Yes, you are being attacked, but what are you going to do about it is the question. I mean, they really have no choice but to try and advance forward very recklessly here. There's Westmark infantry also in reserve, which could come forward to try and defend the Eowyn shield mains. The cavalry is coming forwards now as well. Here comes the Aerin of Oldberg and the Sons of Yor getting closer to the action. Aha, the Mithril Guard on the front line. The Knights of Annuminous lurking in the background as well. But yeah, these the Black Legion against the very best Khazad-dûm infantry. It's going to be tricky for them. The Khazad-dûm Reclaimers taking some damage from the Orc Javelins, but better the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers than the Dwarven Heavy Infantry here. You can see here the Dwarf Infantry crushing the Sauron's Will and the Helmingast. Now the Legion Bodyguard is going to get in on the action as well. The full force of the elite Khazad-dûm Infantry over here being brought to bear against both Mordor and Rohan. And with a lot of Mordor's resources already having been spent, it's going to be up to Rohan to pick up the slack. The Westmark Marshals are going to be needed, definitely. Even then, I don't think the, Khazad-dûm's infantry is so strong in .96. Riddermark archers there. There are some Westmark infantry coming forward, but that is certainly not going to be enough. They are not going to be able to deal sufficient damage. Some of the Knights of Annuminous are actually stuck. Interestingly enough, maybe a bit of a breakthrough over here. The Knights of Annuminous are still lurking on the periphery over here. But the Eowyn shield mains breaking through. The damage they did there with the axe throwers, very significant. It looked like the defenders were about to turn this fight around, but then Rohan using their axe throwers to great effect. The Knights of Annuminous not even able to get a charge off actually on the Eowyn shield maidens. But it doesn't really matter, they're still going to take horrendous damage in melee. All just to get into melee with some Evendim archers as well, but there's not a lot of reserves over here.
The chance for us to regain control of the castle is almost gone.
Still some Evendim archers that broke in the town centre. There's still some units over near Elrond's house, but the town centre's over here. They can't afford to just leave Rohan to go about their business. These Eowyn shield mains look like they're going to break at any moment, which is none too surprising. Here come the Westmark infantry surrounding this force over here. Now's the time for the Knights of Annuminous. They need to get up to charge speed and they need to butcher those Westmark infantrymen. The time is now. If ever there was a time for the cavalry to be useful, it's now. The Rohirrim cavalry is not close enough to lend any support. Oh, but they're going too slowly. Again, I feel as though a lot of these players are newer players because I haven't seen their names before, but even so, you need to get your cavalry back and then you need to get them up to charge speed to really do some damage, but at the moment they're just pottering around being kind of useless, honestly. They didn't even finish off the Eowyn Shield Maidens. Here we can see the defensive line, Fornost-Terrain defenders coming over here to back this up. This is what the area where the defenders are doing best. Unsurprising considering the strength of the Khazad-dûm infantry over here. They're now being backed up by some Arthedain spearmen as well, so this is going to be the end of Rohan's resistance over here. Still some Riddermark archers, but they aren't going to be able to do much damage to these units either, even the Fornost-Terrain defenders from Arthedain. Shielded and well armoured. Some Castamir's Legion over here though. That was a crispy sound. Catapult fire going into the Westmark infantry by the sounds of things. And now it's going to turn into a cav fight. Fortunately for the Knights of Annúminas though, it's going to be between themselves and the Eowyn of Aldburg. And the Knights of Annúminas have got that anti-cavalry bonus, which is going to see them through. However, if the Sons of Yule come over here, it's going to be overwhelming for the Knights of Annúminas. They are probably the toughest knights around. But against Sons of Yule, backed up by more cavalry, that should be enough to give them the win. Some Ebondym archers here getting stuck in alongside the Knights of Annúminas. At this point, they're kind of being used as a sort of defensive line unit, which is interesting for knights. Meanwhile, across the river, this fight is still ongoing. The Annúminas Gate Guards actually coming over here all on their lonesome and holding the line. Eventually, they are still going to be defeated. But it is still buying the defenders time. I don't see how they're going to be dealing much damage, however, especially not with Castamir's Legion. You would imagine their defensive abilities would be enough to keep them alive against pikes, although of course their savages and Hetherley Tower might be taking some damage. Some Dunedain Peacekeepers down there, just sort of wondering what they've got in reserve. They've got a lot of skirmishers up here on the hill, which could do a lot of damage, but obviously the attackers are going to try and close the gap as quickly as they're able. Arthedain men-at-arms sort of getting ready to be as shield for them, I suppose, as well as some dismounted Fornost-Terrain knights. But the defenders are running lower on resources now. At this point, it's sort of becoming more and more a matter of, will Arthedain have enough left in reserve to sort of make it so his team can cross the line? Temple Guard getting into position. You definitely don't want that AP going into the Knights of Annúminas. Again, good hits from the catapult, but they've not got their flaming shot on, so the splash damage is very minimal. Another telltale sign that there's some newer players involved. But over here, the defenders utterly victorious. Castamir's Legion moving forward, which again, I praise the Castamir's Legion a lot. But up against Dwarven, the best Khazad-dûm infantry? No, absolutely not. And honestly, if the defenders were going to choose a unit to sort of absorb the arrow fire, the Fornost-Terrain defenders would be it. Good armour, good shields. Not exactly overly important in melee either. They're really just here for the numbers they are. Some Khazad-dûm reclaimers also waiting in reserve. There's still some units over here. I'd imagine it's the Nazgûl, and indeed it is. But they're just being overwhelmed, and slowly but surely these Annúminas Gate Guards are going to be able to poke them to death as we go through the trench once more. The Eowyn of Aldburg coming back for another bite. Fornost-Terrain defenders coming forward to stop the advance of the Westmark infantry, but the Westmark infantry should be able to beat them in melee. The Spear Malice will loom large, especially with the support still of a few Temple Executioners. Goes to show how tough they can be when you upgrade their armour. Meanwhile, there's still a fight going on over here. Dunedain Peacekeepers now being sent forward. I'm really not a fan of this wave-based defence. If Arthedain were going to do this, they should have sent forward the Dunedain Peacekeepers with the Annúminas Gate Guards from the start, because this is just allowing them, the attackers, to kill these units one by one, which is a amateurish mistake, to be honest. But still, the attacker's not really able to truly break through this area yet, so that's something.
We've lost half of our men.
They still have quite a lot of reserve. They still got a lot of good Mirkwood units in reserve as well. Arthedain marksmen coming forwards. Dunedain Peacekeepers. I mean, the Dunedain Peacekeepers are pretty skillful as far as spears go, but they are still spears. There's a limited amount they're going to be able to do against this huge blob of Umbar and Mirkwood infantry. Moving over here, we can see some Númenorian Lancers from Umbar now. So it could be a case of cavalry being used to try and overwhelm here. The Eowyn of Aldburg charging through to try and get to the catapult and succeeding. And they're actually going to kill off the catapult, actually. Without support, they will. The Knights of Numinous this time finally getting up to charge speed. And they will also be able to beat the Númenórean Lancers in melee. Knights, of course, all conquering on the battlefield, but the Knights of Numinous will be tired and damaged by the time the Sons of Yule move forward. And honestly, the best thing that the attacking cavalry can do here is ignore the Knights of Numinous, try and get into other areas, squishier units. There are some Fornost Terrain defenders, however. Spears, again, Spears not quite as strong in 0.96 against cavalry. But they do still have an anti-cavalry bonus, so it's not where the cavalry wants to be ideally. The Galathran Nobles are over here, that would be a juicy target for the Númenórean Lancers. And that it looks like that's exactly where they're heading. Lothlorien need to pay attention here. They don't have much of their army left to pay attention to, so if they allow their units to get charged, it's no one but their own fault. And yeah, it's too late. The Númenórean Lancers going to get a nice charge off here on the Galathran Nobles. Again, poor awareness of the battlefield here from the defenders. That was a poor charge though, actually. They didn't get up to charge speed at all. Which means they're not really going to be able to do any damage to the Galathran Nobles. Comedy of errors there. And the Númenórean Lancers are not going to want to stay in melee with the Galathran Nobles. Looks they will not stand a chance. Still some Lothlorien Blades in reserve. Still the Sindar Archers as well. Númenórean Lancers sent packing. What about the Knights of Numinous? Only 9 of them left. What on earth happened to them? Ah, I know what happened to them. The Temple Guard. AP arrows from afar, doing a lot of damage while the Knights of Numinous just sort of stood there. But even so, they're going to be able to finish off this somewhat battered unit of Ered of Uldberg. Again, trying to get another charge in here, the Númenórean Lancers. This time, still no dead Galathran Nobles, so again, didn't get up to charge speed. This time, third time lucky. Will they pull their Lancers out? No. Actually, that time they did. Right at the last moment they did. They managed to kill off a couple of Galathran Nobles this time. I'm shocked that the Lothlorien player has not got them out the way yet. Just because they failed twice doesn't mean they will fail again. While at this point, now the Númenórean Lancers, this could be enough to break them, honestly. A downhill charge from all of this Lothlorien infantry, quality Lothlorien blades from that. Ending Flame needs to get his units out of there. I think he is microing over on the other side of the river as well, as the assault begins over there. Defeat seems certain. They need to get out of here. Not looking good for them. Meanwhile, still over here, the defenders looming large. Fornost Terrain defenders and the Legion bodyguard taking point, killing off the Westmark marshals. Again, Umbar are coming over here with support. This time Abrazani Nadu Tariq, which will be ideal against the Fornost Terrain defenders, but they still will not have the quality to deal with Legion bodyguard or Mithril guard. Some axes being thrown into them as well from the Khazad-dûm reclaimers, recognising them as a unit worthwhile of their ammunition, which I would agree with. The Nadu Tariq are not an exceptional unit by any means, but they are still a strong one, that AP as well. And still the defenders on the offensive here. They do need to be careful they don't chase the enemy too far, because elsewhere they are looking a little bit more ragged. The Moranon heavy maulers, after all, this is the gap they've been waiting for. The Rohirrim cavalry now needs to get in here and start causing havoc, running around the settlement, because the Knights of Numinous will be powerless to stop them at this point. The Sons of Yule will be all powerful in here. The Fornost Terrain defenders trying to stop the advance, but once again the Moranon heavy maulers with their AP should be enough here to deal some decent damage to the Fornost Terrain defenders, especially with the support of some Ered of Uldberg. Meanwhile, over here again, once again, the sort of the drips and drabs style of committing your units in waves is something that I'm really against, and I feel as though this proves it, because Arthedain have been doing this. They've been sending one unit after the other, and it has destroyed all of the units they've had over here. It's been so ineffective for them, so inefficient from a cost standpoint, and they're going to pay the price here, because this might be, honestly, the difference between the two teams. If Arthedain had sent forward these men-at-arms, those 2 units of Peacekeepers with the Inhuman Escape Guards, that would have been a force which, yeah, it wouldn't have won, but it would have done more damage. As it is, the attackers have taken very limited damage. Ever since the Lothlorien's really sort of blob of infantry over here has fallen apart, the attackers have been in cruise control over here. And they need those marksmen to start doing some damage. They are certainly within range. Arthedain needs to get it together, otherwise he's going to be the cause of his team's loss here. Especially with the siege equipment here. The 4 Nosterray Knights once again being committed one by one. Here comes some cav charges. The area of Alberg coming in here, but axe throwers, pikes as well. Maybe not the primest of targets. While over here, just a single unit now, holding back the tide. A single unit of these 4 Nost Arain defenders. Arain? I don't know which is the right way of pronouncing it, but the Temple Guard getting into position now. AP archers, still with a bit of ammunition. I would assume they're going to shoot these 4 Nost Arain defenders in the back to try and give the attackers their concrete way into the fortress. And that's going on there. Almost looked like those cavalrymen just fell off the cliff with how the terrain is. Those Sons of Yule still being used a bit too conservatively for my taste. I think if the Sons of Yule had come forward with the area of Alberg and they'd been used super aggressively, the attackers could already be onto a winner here. As it is, their victory will have to come a little bit later, but I do feel as though at this point the momentum is with the attackers. The Lothlorien Blades are coming forward. They're going to take a charge from the Aerid. They didn't get their lances out though. Again, the cavalry seems to be having real trouble getting up to charge speed here. And the Aerid taking some substantial losses in close quarters with the Lothlorien infantry. 2 units of Lothlorien Blades, 3 units of Lothlorien Blades coming over here in fact. If they're coming over to support the 4 Nosterrain defenders, they need to be quick, because with the Temple Guard attacking them in the side and AP infantry attacking them from the front, they're not going to last too much longer. I feel like that's been the defenders' problem. They just simply haven't seen the danger coming. They haven't been quick enough to reinforce their lines.
The enemy is no longer in command of the
Which is a common enough mistake, to be fair, among people who've been playing the game for a little while, so the fact that this would appear to be some newer players speaks well. These Nazgul, meanwhile, have actually managed to win against the numerous Gate Gods, or they will at the very least, if things carry on the way they are. Meanwhile, the dwarves continuing to push. Mithril Guard, Guards of Khazad-dûm, Legion Bodyguard, as well as some 4 Nosterrain defenders, pushing into a combination of Westmark Marshals and Riddermark Archers. Again, they will be victorious, but this isn't really the most pressing engagement for the defenders. And also, as soon as these units are out of the way, it's going to open the door for the Sons of Yule to get a nice charge. Meanwhile, now the attackers trying to push up the hill, the dismounted 4 Nosterrain Knights over there. I really am unsure what these Arthedain marksmen are doing. They need to start shooting. It is of paramount importance at this point that they begin to shoot. The Hobbit slingers are, but I feel as though Arthedain are just so eager to have stuff in reserve, but it's going to be absolutely pointless in the late game if you have stuff in reserve when you're just going to be overwhelmed. You need to start shooting, because at this point Mirkwood, of all factions, are being allowed to set up in position without any form of pressure being put on them from archers. The Hobbit slingers throwing their rocks into this melee fight, trying to do a little bit of additional damage. But the attackers doing the right thing here, they're using their ammunition. And that is going to be enough to help overwhelm the singular unit of dismounted 4 Nosterrain Knights. Please, marksman, please start shooting. I mean, at this point I'm not entirely convinced that the defenders are going to be able to. I think their mistakes have already piled up to the point where they're probably put in a position where they're not going to be able to win. Sindar Archers trying to fire. The Lothlorien Blades are over here now though, and that's a scary force. Mirkwood and Umbar on the other side are going to win, but the defenders will probably just about pull out a victory down here, which makes Arthedain's misplays over on the other side all the more tragic. Temple Guard putting up a good fight on the front line, but ultimately the only backup they have really is fodder. So the Lothlorien Blade's going to be able to overwhelm. Here we have some Balagair Archers. Some Numenus Gate Guards over here as well. Whatever happened to the Sons of Yule? Did they pull back? No, they didn't. They are charging in. The Rohan infantry did fall apart, but as expected, it just allowed the Sons of Yule to get some charges off. And they could be able to kill off a lot of the Khazad-dûm infantry at this point. The Guards of Khazad-dûm, that would be a big catch. 4 Nosterrain defenders at this point. I think the dwarves are going to try and pull back, but at this stage, I'm not sure the defenders will have an answer for the Sons of Yore. The Knights of Illuminus, in the end, weren't able to be as effective as they could possibly be. Sons of Yore, on the other hand, have the chance to be. Now that the settlement's opening up a little bit, both armies starting to run lower on resources, there's a bit more space for cavalry to operate. We'll see if they are going to be enough. Temple Guard here on the front line. There's a Nazgul unit model, but that is just an officer model, I would think. Could be the Mordor General, actually. I think it is. Temple Guard pulling out of melee, seeing that they aren't really going to win this. There's still some Temple Executioners on the front line. That's a lot of Lothlorien Blades. That will be the prime target, I think, for the Sons of Yore to try and charge.
We do not regain command of the castle now, we lose it.
Fornoster Rain Defenders taking a frontal charge from the Sons of Yore, and of course, in .97, this would be a lot more risky for the Sons of Yore. But here, it's going to be enough to rout them and break them. The announcer is once again loving the sound of his own voice. Meanwhile, Dagnirim, Icky, Erin crossing across the bridges, getting into the heart of the settlement. They probably still have ammunition actually as well. Still some units in reserve, some dismounted Fornoster Rain Knights, but that's pretty much it. Arthedain's defence over on the other side was a bit of a disaster. Some Galathrim nobles shooting, but they're shooting over the buildings in a really inefficient manner. And they are now also taking some direct fire from the Dagnirim as well. Much more efficient use of the ammunition here from the attackers. Which again, quality can carry you a long way, but it's not going to be enough to win you the battle outright. I feel as though this was winnable for the defenders, it really was. But I feel as though, unfortunately, they could still win it. As we're sort of within the final 10,000 frames now, but the attackers have pulled ahead by 4%. And it's not all over. It is still close. But I feel as though, the glaring errors in the how the defenders, I should say, have sort of set their lines out. If they had not made those, the defenders should have won this. They could still do so, but it's going to be tricky for them. Still some Knights of Illuminus coming over here, and this again, Meteor Guard still over here. Pretty healthy unit of Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. All of those Lothlorien Blades obviously a big factor on the field. Sons of Yore taking a little bit of damage, charging into all of these Dwarven infantry units, but they need to keep charging. They can't afford to pull back. They need to grab a hold of their balls and charge in. Otherwise, they're going to be leaving their army high and dry, which could cost the attackers the battle. There's a time to be bold. Again, I feel like all the teams at some point or another in this battle have been guilty of being far too conservative, not brave enough with their units. And that could end up costing either team at this point. We'll see, but I feel as though just the amount of Mirkwood and Umbar units still left alive is just far too great. Narin, Arirul Guard and Belagai Halberds pushing forward. Fornoster Rain Knights still holding the line. Finally, these Arthedain marksmen are shooting. I don't know how long they've been shooting, but a lot of their ammunition is going into the dirt. Catapult fire coming into the position up here on the cliff. All the shots missing though. Not an easy shot for the catapult. They should probably just target something else. Hold on to their ammo for later. I think actually the Sons of Yore are going to cycle all the way around and try and go this way, which at this point, bypassing the cliff road altogether, and Umbar and Mirkwood are now starting to flood forwards. Fornoster Rain Knights facing Castamir's Legion. Bit of a clash of the Titans, but ultimately the Fornoster Rain Knights are just going to be overwhelmed, you would think. Umbar and Mirkwood pouring forwards now, the Lothlorien Blades trying to scamper across someone, because they were victorious over here actually, the defenders. Almost completely and utterly. There's still Nazgul left alive. There was, they were just killed by the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. The Khazad-dûm elites are a little bit thin on the ground at this point. Legion Bodyguard, the healthiest of the bunch, with 38, which is a fair few of them to be fair. Knights of Illuminus coming over here, and again you can see that the Sons of Yore sort of cycled over to this side, but it might be better if they cycle back now. Castamir's Legion moving forwards. Fornoster Rain Knights fighting evenly with the Castamir's Legion. Yeah, this is the fight I'd actually back the Fornoster Rain Knights in. Skill, a little bit more attack focused. Shields will not help them in a melee fight like this. could it be that the defenders' quality, in spite of their defensive mistakes, will be enough to send them over the line? Because Sindar Archers and Galathram Nobles, along with Lothlorien Blades, that's strong. And Casimir's Legion and Abrazani Nadu Tariq are good, but they're not going to be good enough here, you would think, to make too much of a dent here. You can see Umbar trying to sort of use their numbers to force the defenders into sort of an engagement they don't really want, which is working actually. Good move there from Umbar, sort of making the most of their units. They will pay the price for this, obviously. The Nadu Tariq, as soon as they go too far, will start getting ripped apart by the Elven infantry. Naruna Aruror Guard still here, Balagaya Halberd still here. They should probably go to the aid of this unit of Castamir's Legion, because it sorely needs it. This Nadu Tariq did a really good job there of pushing through. Good spot there from the Umbar player, not just allowing the elves to sit there and use their quality, but instead pushing them into a position where they didn't want to be. I would still suggest that this is not going to go their way. Galathram Nobles and Sindar Archers are really strong, although the Sindar Archers got caught in and amongst that. Good play there from Umbar. Nice of me to be able to compliment something rather than complain about how someone's gone about something. Khazad Dum Reclaimers, there's still those units up on the cliff, still being bombarded. The Mirkwood infantry over here is still taking arrow fire, which, you know, ever since those arrows have started up, you can see that much more damage has been done. The Sons of Yall are coming forward. The Hobbit Slingers, naturally, are not really going to last all that much longer in melee against Mirkwood, especially not when there are Rohirrim Knights pushing through them as well, getting into those skirmishers. The Aradirith Amon Lanka over here as well, so Mirkwood still have some quality units. They need to get across the river and help Umbar, though. This battle is the attackers to lose at this point. Knights Voluminous coming in. But again, these are spears. That's the end of the Arthedain General. They did kill off a couple of the Naruna Aruror Guard, actually. Maybe going for a general assassination, but ultimately it didn't work out for them in the end. Evenly match fight after those. Nadu Tariq really did a good job there of pushing in to the lines. What is going on here? Khazad-dûm Reclaimers coming in. Sorely needed on the front line. We're now very much in the final phases of this fight. Nothing really going on over here except for a sort of small engagement between what? Legion Bodyguard and Temple Guard. Legion Bodyguard will take that fight. If it were the Temple Executioners, it would be a little different. But it is the Temple Guard. The Temple Guard still have their ammunition, however, which, honestly, this is key, because the Legion Bodyguard would have been extremely useful at crossing the other fight. But now the Legion Bodyguard are going to have to take armor-piercing arrows in the back as they retreat. More damage being done. Sons of Yall at this point getting into the settlement. This is exactly where they want to be. The addition of the Balagaya Halberds supporting the Castamir's Legion overwhelmed the dismounted Fornost Terrain Knights. And now the Sons of Yall, Castamir's Legion. I mean, the elves over here are going to win, but there's Sons of Yall coming in now, which if they get into the right position, they could charge in. Naruna Aruror Guard over here. Merc would still have some stuff in reserve, some nasty stuff as well. The Aradirith, Hir'i Lung as well. I don't know where the Agwe I Nanwaith went. But yeah, with all of this, I think it's safe to say that the attackers are going to win. Mirkwood have got a lot of their stuff still there. Taking a bit of a beating from the Arthedain Marksmen. But the Hobbit Slingers' victory is a distinct possibility. Take a mental note of this. It's not often you see Hobbit Slingers looking like they're going to beat Gwathi, Erin Gallen and Hir'i Ek in melee. Obviously that comes down to the Arthedain Marksmen more than anything else. This is the final phase of the fight. The attackers, I think, going to be just fine. See there that the Sons of Yall at this point are going to circumvent the situation and go after the Arthedain Marksmen. Down here, Mithril Guard pushing through to get into the Naruna Aruror Guard. Of course they do not have AP arrows, so the Mithril Guard just sort of tanking that fire. But they are multiple HP spears, so they will be able to hold their own in melee, especially against a very depleted unit like that. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, meanwhile on the other side still the Temple Guard doing their thing against the Legion Bodyguard, who at this point I think have accepted their fate. The Rohan Catapult, that was the Rohan Catapult was sort of counted out of the fight because there was only supposed to be so much artillery. That was what the player told me. And there's still something over here as well. What is it? It's to be a routing unit of some description. Unimportant to our affairs. Legion Bodyguard maybe trying to get into melee with the Temple Guard, but at this point they've taken a lot of damage. The Temple Guard might be able to take this fight home actually in melee at this point. Aradirith coming forward. The Naru Naaru being supported by the Hiri Lung. Now that Mirkwood are really sort of flexing their muscles, it's going to be all over. Sons of Yorl are just going to be able to cycle charge into these Arthedain marksmen and kill them off. And from the front, they're also going to have to deal with a melee fight against Hetherley Tower. And it's all over. Just a matter of clean-up at this point for the attackers. It's a shame, you know, I still feel as though the defenders could have won this. And it was that defence over there against Umbar and Mirkwood which I think has cost them, because over here, they technically won the defence. But Lothlorien they did hold initially, but I feel as though again it was very risky to commit their forces forwards like that. They took so many losses from the enemy skirmishers, and they were not able to be supported by the Arthedain skirmishers on the cliff. There's a reason why not many people deploy forwards like that as the defenders and try and use the cliffs and the high ground to their advantage. As we all know, the high ground is OP, and that probably should have been the way they went about it. The Aradirith Amon Lank now shooting these Lothlorien units in the back. A grisly fate. What have we here? Maetha Ilazgala. That's going to be javelins as well. The catapult crew coming forward, trying to do their bit. Crossbow Corsairs getting up on the hill, doing some more damage to the Khazad-dûm reclaimers. A good fight though. As we have a look here, it is going to end up being within 10%, which for a large-scale siege like this, with a lot of players, you know, that constitutes a very close fight. I don't think it'll be within 5% by the end. I think the overwhelming numbers will lead the attackers to start gaining a little bit more of an advantage as things go on, but still. Good to see Rivendell in action. A competitive fight as well. Aradirith, combination of their bows and their axes. Shooting into these units over here. I think Haldir is still alive. I'm not sure if we'll be able to pick him out of the crowd. There he is. He's actually going up against halberds as well, so he might survive a little bit longer. What happened to the Legion Bodyguard? Were they utterly vanquished? I think they were. Temple Guard now move forward. There goes Barlin. At the hands of the Naru Naaru Royal Guard. You can see there that the Arthedain marksmen sort of trying to retreat. Again, the battle, bit of a foregone conclusion at this point. What am I doing? Here we go. Arthedain marksmen bravely trying to hold the line, but there's only so much a basic skirmisher can do, especially against an attack-focused infantry unit like the Hetherley Tower, with their dual axes. What have we here? Attackers forming up. Getting ready to try and surround these Galadhrim nobles perhaps, or actually, just to allow the Maetha Ilazgala to shoot them with javelins. No honourable death in melee for them. Here comes the Temple Guard. Going to try and take the town centre, are they? The Sons of Yorl are over here doing the same. Padding their kill count. Oof. A javelin to the chest. Finishes Haldir off. Lost Rain defenders, who did return from routing actually, but only 12 of them. I do love the Sons of Yorl. Obviously I don't think they had any changes to their unit model in 0.97, then again they don't really need to, they look very majestic as is. The Aerid, however, did get a unit model upgrade, as I'm sure everyone is aware. More arrow fire coming in here, denying the elves the death in melee. Javelins and arrow fire coming forward from Mirkwood. Galadhrim nobles obviously a very strong unit in melee, but at this point, even they will not be strong enough to reverse their fortunes in this particular fight. Hiri Pang moving forward. I'm not sure whether the Agwe Inanwe are ever actually needed. Up here, meanwhile, that's going to be the end of this unit of Arthedain marksmen. They rout. That would obviously then charge forward as well. near enough the final 1,000 frames. The Numinous Gate Guards actually returned from routing as a result of being attacked by the Temple Guard, but obviously it's Temple Guard, so they might wish that they had just run from the battlefield entirely rather than just the town centre. That's either the dwarves or the elves. It's the dwarves, so Khazad-dûm, the first ones to engage in melee in this fight, and the first ones to fall by the wayside. Even their strength was not enough this time to dig the defenders out of the hole. Lothlorien's quality carried them a ways as well, but ultimately a few lapses in judgment were all it took for the battle to get away from the defenders, and the attackers will win this. Arthedain marksmen trying to do some damage from on high, pad their kill count a little bit, make themselves look a little better for the end screen. Arguetti and Anwe still fully healthy. Don't know if they even fired their bows in this battle actually. Haven't seen them. Four Nosterrain defenders are shaken. Oh, and there goes Eomer. Was he killed by a Hobbit Slinger? Well, rip. The Numinous Gate Guards just being crushed by the Temple Guards. Moving forward, so that means the last fight, the last unit that are going to be left alive for the defenders here is this solitary unit of Arthedain marksmen up here on the hill, you would think, as they get sandwiched between the Mirkwood infantry. And naturally this fight is not going to take too long for Mirkwood to clean up, so the attackers, victorious. Imladris weren't actually involved, so I guess Elrond has been letting his house out.
It could have been we that were slain and defeated on the field, but fate has been kind and delivered us victory.
So looking out over Rivendell, the attackers victorious, but not by a huge margin. And unsurprisingly, Khazad-dûm getting the most kills. Again, of all the defenders, they certainly, while all they really needed to do was hold 2 choke points, they still had a good understanding of how to do that. I feel as though Lothlorien and Arthedain needed to go about their business in a slightly different manner if they were going to have more success. I feel as though Lothlorien a bit too gung-ho with deploying a bit too far forwards. Arthedain, again, committing units one at a time in waves is something that I've complained about before, and it's something that they fell into the trap of doing as well. If those two things had not happened, I feel as though the defenders could have pulled this out. As far as the attackers go, not too surprising that Rohan got the least amount of kills because they were primarily up against Khazad-dûm, which obviously, as far as an infantry fight goes, Khazad-dûm are going to be able to defeat Rohan. Mordor getting the most, which, again, not too surprising because they did have stuff like Nazgul and Olag High. In the end, that very quality focused army that Ricky Beagle went for ended up paying off in spades. Let's have a look at what did the damage for Rohan. Eowyn Shieldmane's getting the most. Not too surprised about that at all, because that was one of the few things they had against Khazad-dûm that would have done significant damage. Having a look down here, again, the Eowyn Shieldmane's getting over 100. Eowyn of Aldberg getting nearly 100. One unit of Westmark Infantry did very well, actually, and I imagine that was one of the ones committed later, when they started to achieve a few breakthroughs. The Sons of Yor getting some damage in the late game dam as well. But even the AP units struggled greatly. Even the Westmark Marshals, which I'm a big fan of, struggled against the hyper elite units from Khazad-dûm, which you would kind of expect, to be fair. So yeah, I hope you will have a good Christmas. This obviously will be released on Christmas Day, obviously Boxing Day tomorrow as well. And I will be doing the Helm's Deep one sort of New Year's Eve, maybe New Year's Day, I'm not sure. But yeah, so there's going to be a few videos between then and now anyway. I'll just sort of keep up the regular flow of content. So yeah, I hope you've had a good holiday season. I hope the rest of your Christmas Day, or whenever you watch this, will be nice. Obviously, it could be that you watch this in a week or two, in which case this is irrelevant. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next, which we're going to be tidying up a few more of the 0.96 battles, I think, that I've been sent, before we dive back into potentially some faction updates, depending on sort of how far along development has gotten for them. We'll see. But yeah, I hope you'll join me for whatever it is regardless.